They say women cheat silently, but that's a lie. A woman who cheats always speaks, just not with words. Her behavior shifts, her energy changes, and if you're paying attention, the signs are always there. The problem is, most men don't see it until it's too late. So let me be real with you today. Because if she's already gone in her heart, her actions will scream it long before her lips do. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk real today. Let's talk about something uncomfortable, something people whisper about, but never quite say out loud. Cheating, and not just in general, but when a woman cheats. Because whether we like it or not, betrayal is not gender specific. And when a woman starts stepping outside the relationship, there are always signs, subtle, quiet, but always there. And the truth is, you don't need to be a detective. You just need to listen, really listen to what isn't being said anymore. Let me walk you through the 3 signs, not to create paranoia, but to help you understand behavior, to recognize when emotional gaps grow too wide, and to encourage mature, honest conversations before things fall apart beyond repair. Sign number 1. Her emotional presence goes quiet. A woman in love is expressive. She feels loudly. She wants to be involved in your world. She asks, did you eat? Not just to check on you, but because she cares. She wants to share moments, laughter, even silence with you. When a woman begins to cheat, that emotional noise begins to disappear. Suddenly, she's always busy, always tired, emotionally detached. You start hearing things like, I don't want to talk about it, or I'm just going through something, but she doesn't let you in. You see, a woman doesn't have to physically walk out the door to leave you. Often she emotionally checks out first, long before the affair begins. She'll laugh with others, share stories, take selfies, and you'll watch her become a stranger sitting beside you. The affection fades, not with a fight, but with silence. Watch her emotional investment. If she's gone, but she's still there, something deeper is happening. Sign number 2. Her routines change without explanation. Let's be honest, most women are creatures of rhythm. They wake up at the same time, have their favorite coffee, and even binge their Netflix series religiously. But when she starts cheating, the rhythm is off. She becomes unpredictable and often unexplained. Suddenly she's working late, more often, going out with friends you've never met, taking phone calls in the bathroom, protecting her phone like it's a national secret. You notice her phone face down more than face up. She leaves the room to reply to messages. Her laughter now comes from messages you don't see. You don't want to be that guy who checks phones or stalks social media, but your instincts whisper something's off. Don't ignore that. Women don't just change their patterns for no reason. If she once invited you everywhere and now wants more space, there's a reason behind that shift. Routine doesn't lie. It tells you who's consistent and who's hiding something in the new rhythm of their life. Sign number 3. Intimacy becomes a transaction or disappears. There's something sacred about intimacy in a relationship. It's not just about the act, it's about presence, about connection, about being vulnerable. When a woman is cheating, that sacred space shifts. Either she avoids intimacy altogether or, strangely, becomes performative, mechanical, distant. The spark doesn't feel like it's between you two anymore. It feels borrowed. Her kisses don't linger. Her touch feels rushed. Sometimes she starts arguments before bedtime just to avoid any kind of closeness. Other times she overcompensates with sudden affection, and it feels like guilt trying to play it cool. And this is where most men begin to feel confused, because they can't figure out if they're the problem or if they're just imagining things. But listen to me carefully. When intimacy shifts dramatically without emotional transparency, something is being redirected elsewhere. You're not crazy. You're not insecure. You're just seeing the truth that love tries to cover. And before we end, I want to say this. Not all distance means betrayal. Sometimes people grow apart. Sometimes women cheat, not because they're bad, but because they're broken. And sometimes the signs are a cry for attention, not an act of war. But pretending not to notice what's in front of you doesn't protect your heart. It only delays the pain. So if you notice these signs, don't attack. Ask. Ask the questions. Start the conversation. Reconnect. Or walk away with dignity. Because in the end, it's not about catching someone cheating. It's about knowing your worth and never begging to be chosen. When a woman begins to cheat, the very first thing that often changes is her emotional presence. And it's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's quiet, subtle. Almost like the dimming of a light that once brightly lit up every corner of your relationship. She doesn't storm out. She doesn't scream. She doesn't slam doors. Instead, she just fades. You'll notice it when her energy becomes harder to reach. The woman who used to ask how your day went no longer cares for the answer. She used to be present, warm, connected. Now she seems somewhere else. Her body is in the room, but her mind is traveling through thoughts she no longer shares with you. There's a stillness in her that you don't recognize. Conversations become one-word replies. She's not mean, she's not angry, she's just distant. And it's that distance that starts to grow roots in your gut, making you feel something is off, even if she hasn't said a word. When she was emotionally invested, you felt it in everything she did, from the way she'd remind you of your goals, to the way she'd touch your arm when she passed you in the kitchen, to how she'd laugh with her whole body when you said something funny. It's not just the big romantic gestures that go missing, it's the small, daily moments of affection that quietly disappear. You'll find her staring at her phone a little longer than usual, not because she's hiding something yet, but because her interest is shifting. Her excitement is no longer about your shared plans, your inside jokes, your couple traditions. She becomes quiet around the things that once made her heart beat louder. Maybe you used to plan Friday nights together. Now she just says, "Do whatever, I might be out." Maybe she used to light up when she saw you walk into the room. Now her eyes barely lift. And it's not always because she's angry or disappointed. Sometimes she just doesn't feel it anymore. And the person she's growing feelings for is absorbing the energy that used to belong to you. A woman's emotional presence is a powerful thing. When she's in love, you feel wrapped in it, protected by it, reassured by it. But when that presence goes missing, there's a void. A silence that's hard to explain. It's in the way she no longer reminds you to eat, not because she forgot, but because she no longer feels responsible for your well-being. It's in the way she listens but doesn't hear, nods but doesn't engage, sits next to you but looks like she's wishing she was somewhere else. You may try to fix it, you may try to joke more, touch more, talk more, but when a woman is emotionally gone, nothing you do feels like it lands. It's like you're trying to catch her attention through a thick glass wall. The warmth that once lived in her tone now sounds neutral. Conversations become formal. The connection becomes functional. She talks about tasks, schedules, logistics, not feelings, not dreams, not love. And if you bring it up, she'll likely say, "I'm just tired," or "It's nothing," because often she doesn't want to face it either. Or maybe, deep down, she's hoping you won't notice. But you do. You feel the absence of her heart before her body ever leaves. You feel the gap when her laughter doesn't reach her eyes. You sense the difference when her presence no longer fills the room with warmth. And the hardest part is you start to miss her, even while she's still sitting next to you. When a woman starts to cheat, her routine rarely remains the same. The subtle shifts in her behavior, her patterns, and how she structures her time become early indicators that something beneath the surface is changing. These aren't always obvious at first glance, but over time they begin to add up. She starts doing things she never used to do, or stops doing things that used to be important to her, and it doesn't feel like growth or transformation. It feels secretive, rushed, and unexplained. The little details you once took for granted begin to feel unfamiliar, almost like you're watching someone else live in the skin of the woman you thought you knew. It starts with time. Time that used to belong to the relationship begins to go missing. She might start working late more often than usual, but can't clearly explain what she's doing. She says she's exhausted from meetings, yet doesn't talk about her day the way she used to. There's vagueness in her explanations, a fog that clouds her new schedule. Where there was once routine and predictability, there's now spontaneity wrapped in mystery. Suddenly, she's unavailable during hours she used to be free. She's running errands that take longer than they should. She's going places she hasn't mentioned before and doesn't offer much detail about afterward. And if you ask too many questions, she becomes defensive, irritated, or simply dismisses your concern with, "Why don't you trust me?" Then come the new friends, the ones you've never met, never heard about before. These new names pop up in conversation, sometimes accidentally, sometimes vaguely. She'll refer to someone casually, as if you're supposed to know who they are. And when you ask, "Who's that?" she quickly moves the conversation in another direction or says, "Just someone from work." But when a woman is in love, she shares. She involves you. She wants you to know who's in her life. When secrecy creeps in, when she shields parts of her world from you, it's not just privacy, it's exclusion. And that exclusion is a warning sign. You'll notice a shift in how she guards her devices. Her phone, once tossed casually on the couch or left charging in the open, is now face down, locked, sometimes even silent. She takes it with her to the bathroom, to the kitchen, even from one room to another. She starts typing faster, laughing at messages she won't explain, clearing her call logs more often, and maybe even changing her passwords. She says she just wants privacy, but something about the suddenness, the intensity of her need for it, doesn't feel right. Her appearance might also begin to change. Maybe she's dressing up more often, putting extra effort into how she looks, even on days when she says she's not going anywhere important. Maybe she's wearing perfume she hasn't worn in months, buying new clothes, changing her hair. Alone, these might seem harmless. After all, everyone deserves to feel confident and take care of themselves. But when those changes happen in tandem with unexplained absences, new contacts, and increased secrecy, they form a pattern that speaks of someone trying to impress someone new. Routine is the quiet keeper of relationship health. It reflects connection, commitment, and transparency. When a woman is loyal and emotionally available, her schedule feels open to you. You feel included, involved. But when her routine becomes a locked door, when her daily patterns no longer make sense, and you're left trying to piece together where she's been or who she's with, it creates emotional confusion, and emotional confusion always has a root. It doesn't mean she's a bad person or that she planned to hurt you. It means her heart is wandering and her behavior is following quietly behind. The shift in routine is rarely the loudest alarm, but it is often the most consistent one, because no matter how carefully someone tries to hide an affair, time tells the truth. Patterns tell the truth. And when a woman starts carving out a secret space in her schedule, it's not just her routine that's changing, it's her loyalty, her focus, and her emotional energy pulling away piece by piece. When intimacy begins to shift in a relationship, it often tells a story the mouth refuses to speak. And when a woman starts to cheat, this change in intimacy doesn't always come in the form of total rejection. Sometimes it shows up as subtle withdrawal. Other times it becomes something forced, robotic, or even overly intense, like she's trying to compensate for something. But no matter the direction, the feeling changes, and feelings don't lie. The way she touches you, the way she responds to your touch, the way she connects or disconnects during those quiet, vulnerable moments tells you more about the state of the relationship than words ever could. You might start noticing that she avoids physical closeness altogether, not just sex, but hugs, kisses, eye contact. She may begin to flinch when you reach for her or roll over in bed without even acknowledging your presence. The warmth, that once flowed naturally between your bodies becomes cool, distant. She doesn't want to cuddle. She doesn't initiate anything. And when you try to, she makes excuses. She's tired. She's stressed. She's not in the mood. And maybe you believe it the first few times. But when that becomes the new normal, when the loving rhythm you shared turns into a one-sided attempt at connection, something deeper is going on. Then there's the kind of intimacy that feels empty, where she still participates physically, but the soul of it is gone. You notice her body is there, but her mind is not. She's not really looking at you, not really responding, not really present. It becomes mechanical, a routine, something she does to keep the peace or avoid questions. You can feel it in the silence after. You can feel it when she doesn't hold you, doesn't speak, just turns away. That level of emotional disconnect is a red flag, waving loud in a quiet room. In some cases, the opposite happens. She may suddenly become more sexual, more aggressive, more exploratory, but it doesn't feel like her. It feels like she's trying on someone else's skin. And you can't help but wonder, where did she learn that? Who's inspiring these new moves? What changed and why now? There's a guilt that people sometimes try to hide through overcompensation, trying to convince themselves that everything is still normal by turning up the volume on intimacy. But real connection isn't about how loud it is, it's about how honest it feels. And when that honesty goes missing, you start to feel more alone in moments that are supposed to bring you closer together. You might try to talk about it. You might say things like, I miss how we used to be, or is everything okay between us? But she brushes it off. She tells you you're overthinking, that everything is fine, but her body language keeps telling a different story. She pulls away more often. She sits at the edge of the bed. She avoids the long conversations that once bonded you. And in the quiet space that grows between you, doubt begins to live. Physical intimacy is not just about sex. It's about safety, trust, emotional availability. When that begins to shift without clear communication, it creates confusion. And confusion, especially in a relationship, becomes a breeding ground for suspicion and insecurity. When a woman begins to cheat, she starts to protect pieces of herself that used to be freely given. Her kisses become shorter. Her touch becomes lighter. Her gaze drifts past you. And sometimes, without saying a word, her entire body language says, I'm no longer fully here with you. That shift is hard to name at first, but it is always felt. And the more it happens, the more you realize you're not being paranoid. You're paying attention to the space where love used to live without walls. When a woman begins to cheat, one of the most overlooked signs is how her attitude toward you subtly changes. It's not always cruel or explosive. In fact, sometimes it's wrapped in kindness that feels unfamiliar or indifference that comes without explanation. Her energy toward you shifts in a way that seems inconsistent with the woman you used to know. One day she's warm, the next she's cold. One moment she's laughing with you, the next she's annoyed by everything you do. And that inconsistency becomes a storm you can't predict, making you feel like you're walking on eggshells in a space that used to feel like home. You start noticing that the respect she once had for you begins to wear thin. She questions your decisions more harshly, mocks your dreams with subtle sarcasm, or finds fault in things she used to admire about you. That admiration that used to shine in her eyes is replaced by irritation or boredom. She doesn't look at you with the same softness. Her compliments stop, and criticism takes their place. Even the way she speaks to you becomes sharper. She raises her voice more often, or worse, she uses silence as a weapon, keeping you at a distance emotionally while pretending everything is normal on the surface. Sometimes she starts comparing you to others, directly or indirectly. She might mention how someone else does something better, how a friend's boyfriend is more supportive, how someone at work understands her in a way she feels you don't. And though she may say these things jokingly, they land like cuts. Because deep down, you feel what she's not saying out loud, that someone else has begun to occupy emotional space in her mind, and now you are being measured against that shadow, often without your knowledge. The way she views you begins to change, not because you've changed, but because her heart is in conflict with her loyalty. Other times, the disrespect doesn't come through words, it comes through behavior. She no longer checks in on you. She makes plans without including you. She forgets important dates, avoids eye contact during disagreements, dismisses your feelings when you open up. And when you try to express your concern, she makes you feel like you're overreacting. You begin to question yourself, wondering if maybe you are too sensitive, too needy, too insecure. But it's not insecurity when the connection you once shared feels fractured. It's intuition trying to speak to you. There are also moments when she becomes overly sweet, unusually caring, suddenly generous in ways that feel forced or calculated. This can confuse you because it feels like love, but deep inside something feels off. That sudden kindness may be born out of guilt. When someone knows they are doing something wrong, they sometimes try to cover it with good behavior, hoping to balance the emotional scales. But love that is real doesn't come in confusing waves. It flows naturally without having to prove anything. You might also see a shift in how she supports you. She no longer stands beside you the way she used to. Your wins don't excite her. Your struggles don't concern her. The emotional partnership that once defined your relationship begins to erode. You feel like you're carrying the weight alone, while she drifts further into her own world. And the hardest part is, she doesn't even try to pull you in anymore. She's physically present, but emotionally unavailable, mentally distant, even during shared moments. And when you look into her eyes, it's like she's already somewhere else entirely. It's not about just catching her in a lie, it's about recognizing the emotional shift. When a woman changes how she treats you, it's a reflection of where her heart is going. And while people go through phases, while life brings stress and change, this kind of shift is different. It's cold, unfamiliar, and deep down you feel the loss before the truth ever fully comes to the surface. Your heart already knows. Silence has a voice, distance has a meaning, and when a woman begins to change in these quiet, consistent ways, she's already saying something without ever opening her mouth. Don't ignore what your spirit is trying to tell you. Have the hard conversation. Choose clarity over confusion because you deserve truth, you deserve connection, and you deserve to be with someone whose heart is fully with you, not halfway somewhere else.